Well, if you want to understand modern American society, the first thing you need to realize is that lots of people are very unhappy. And those unhappy people tend to think that their unhappiness can be cured by majority vote, essentially. If they can convince other people to live the way that they live and do the things that they do and become as unhappy as they are, then magically it will have the effect of making them happy. And in a similar way, they believe that if they can convince everyone else that they are not unhappy, even though they are indeed deeply and tragically unhappy, then they will become happy. And if none of those strategies work, of course, which they don't, then there's always antidepressants, which also don't work. What I've just described could, of course, be summarized by the cliche, misery loves company. And that, as it happens, would also be a great title for Chelsea Handler's autobiography if she ever writes one. Not that the title of a book that nobody will read really matters. Chelsea Handler, of course, is a comedian. At least I've gathered based on context clues that she's a comedian, or trying to be one anyway. Never actually heard her tell anything that can be immediately recognized as a joke. That is, unless we step back and view her career through a wider lens and see that her entire career is the joke. Maybe this is some sort of like performance art that she's doing. And if that's what she's going for, then she is pulling it off, and masterfully so, I have to say. Now, recently, Handler took the job of guest host on The Daily Show after Trevor Noah's departure. And we can't be sure what the producers had in mind when they hired a shrill, unfunny spinster with all the wit and charm of a bitter middle-aged woman standing in line at Target while loudly complaining that they don't have enough registers open. I can only assume that there are maybe some Trevor Noah loyalists still on the staff who wanted to find someone who could manage to make him seem funny in retrospect. Maybe that's what's going on. Whatever the thought process, it didn't take Handler very long to steer the show in the only direction she knows how to go, which is desperately justifying her own life choices, especially her choice to not have children. And actually, I need to amend that slightly, because it's not that Handler has chosen not to have children, it's that she's chosen not to allow any of her children to live. She is childless today thanks to the 3 abortions that she often brags about. She doesn't have any living children, we should say. She is, however, the mother of 3 dead children, babies who were sacrificed on the altar of her quote-unquote freedom, a freedom that was purchased with the blood of her own children. Just to clarify, that's what we're talking about. Recently, as many people have seen in viral clips of the show, Handler dedicated an episode to defending and promoting her child-free lifestyle. Now, normally nothing involving Chelsea Handler, or The Daily Show for that matter, is worth talking about. But in this case, she inadvertently raises, I think, a few important points that are worth discussing. And so I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on this. So here's Chelsea.
One thing that I have made abundantly clear is that I do not want children. I say it on stage. I say it in interviews. It's the first thing I say to myself in the mirror when I wake up each morning, right before I tell myself, God, you're a dynamic woman. Kids don't respect me, and quite frankly, the feeling is mutual. And the fact is, there are millions of women just like me, but for some reason, every single one of us at some point in our lives is shamed by society for not wanting a baby. And that's what I want to talk about in tonight's installment of Long Story Short.
Well, actually, Chelsea, society wouldn't know or especially care that you don't have kids. Nobody's running up to you on the street screaming, hey, where are your babies? You better have babies. Rather, you often talk about your decision to be childless, and you talk about it in the most obnoxious ways you possibly can, which gives everyone else in society the right to give their own opinion about your choices and the reasoning behind those choices. This is the way it works, and it's something that everyone needs to understand, because a lot of people struggle with this. You see, when you present your lifestyle choice to the public, when you go on TV and talk about it in front of millions of people, or at least hundreds of people in the case of The Daily Show, you have submitted that lifestyle choice for public discussion. You cannot go to the public and say, hey, guess what? Here's a fact about me and the way that I live my life. You can't do that and then get offended when people say, well, here's my opinion about that. You gave that information to us. People naturally form opinions about the information you tell them. Now, nobody has the right to go banging on your front door and demanding to know how many kids you have. But everyone has the right to form opinions about the unsolicited information you give them. Don't want their opinion? Well, then don't tell them about it. Now let's listen to her continue to tell us about it.
America, and honestly everywhere, motherhood is treated as a woman's central purpose in life, as if our destiny is to let a tiny stranger rip a hole through our Pikachu from the inside out. And then as soon as we turn 18, we're just supposed to sit back and wait for Nick Cannon to impregnate us?
Yeah, you see, it's funny because she made a reference to pop culture. We all know that a statement is automatically hilarious when it refers to something in pop culture that we all recognize. You don't need to have an actual punchline. No joke is needed. Simply say, hey, you guys remember this thing from pop culture? And then wait for the uproarious laughter to commence, especially if you're in front of a studio audience where they're instructed to laugh. Then it really works. Next, we hear testimonials from other childless women who have been viciously discriminated against by society, they claim. And the ode to childlessness goes on for a while longer, and it leads eventually to this.
But these Fox News trolls are right about one thing. I am miserable. In fact, I was just scrolling through my Instagram feed the other day, realizing how miserable I am. I'm miserable on the beach. And then here I am miserable on the top of a mountain. And then here I am miserable scuba diving. And then I'm miserable again smoking a joint in a hot tub. Is truly a new circle of hell for me. The simple truth is that I'm not having a kid because I'm happier without them, and that's really not of anyone's concern but my own. And no, I don't hate kids. I just don't want them. That's what's so great about nieces and nephews. I love being an aunt. I'm crushing that role. Guess who gave each one of them their first edible? This girl, yeah.
Now, you see, Chelsea, you're 47 years old. So giving drugs to kids doesn't make you a cool aunt. It makes you a creep, and worse. The time to start planning for your retirement is now. The U.S. blew through $31.4 trillion in debt in December, and still the White House refuses to reduce spending. With the troubling state of the United States economy, it's time to start thinking about how you invest and what your investments are, what your future is going to be. You need to consider diversifying into gold with Birch Gold. Since 2003, Birch Gold has become a leading dealer of physical precious metals in the U.S. Today, with a dynamic team of former wealth managers, financial advisors, and commodity brokers, they continue to help customers diversify their portfolios with gold, silver, platinum, and palladium, whatever that is. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in precious metals. With your retirement at stake, you want to be confident in the financial service companies that you work with, including who you choose for purchasing physical precious metals. So just text Walsh to 989898 to claim your free info kit on gold, and then talk to one of their precious metal specialists. Birch Gold will hold your hand through the entire process. Text Walsh to 989898 to protect yourself with gold today. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, and countless 5-star reviews, I trust Birch Gold to help protect my savings and to protect yours as well. Text Walsh to 989898 today. Also, if your decision to not have any living children is not anyone's concern but your own, then why did you dedicate a 10-minute segment on national TV to it? Once again, that's the question. Well, you did it, as we established at the beginning, partly because you're trying to convince yourself of your own happiness. This partly explains virtually everything that any leftist says about almost any subject. It's almost always, at least in part, a game of them convincing themselves that they're happy with the way they've chosen to live their lives. And also you did it because you wish to promote your empty, miserable lifestyle in the hopes that more people will join you in it. And it's for that latter reason that I feel compelled to make 2 points in response. First, I must again point out that you're 47 years old. Nothing wrong with being 47. The point is that you could have had kids and yet still be at this point climbing all the mountains and hanging out on all the beaches that you want. Because children don't stay toddlers forever. They grow up. Okay? If you had a child at the age when the average woman in America has children these days, even though that average age is going up and it's getting older and older, but even now, after that process has happened, your child would be about 21 years old right now if you follow the average trajectory. And if your child followed the average trajectory, by the time you're in your early 50s, your child would be married with a child of their own. The point is that at your age, you could have all of your precious freedoms, all of your vacations, all the time in the hot tub that you want, all the time to sleep in that you want, especially if you don't have a job, and also a family. See, you're too old now to use this argument that you want to make. To use the argument of like, you see how easy my life is? I don't have to get up in the morning with a screaming baby. That might work when you're still not a compelling argument, but like at least it's relevant when you're 28, because if you were 28 and you had a kid, there's a very good chance the kid would be a baby. You can't do that when you're 47. There are very few 47-year-olds, even ones with lots of kids that are waking up in the middle of the night with a baby. You know, it's like going up to somebody who just finished a marathon and bragging that you get to sit down and relax and you don't have to run a marathon. Well, the person who just finished it also can sit down and relax, yet they get to do it with the knowledge that they finished a marathon. So you're both relaxing now, but only one of you ran a marathon. Who's in the better spot? Indeed, who can enjoy that relaxation more? See, that's a factor that isn't often taken into consideration, but it's an important life lesson. As a childless person, you don't get to experience the joys of having children, obviously, but you also don't really get to experience the benefits of not having children. You don't actually experience that. Or I should say, you might experience them, but you don't appreciate them. You can't. You see, you've always been able to sleep in. You've never had to wake up in the middle of the night with a crying baby. You've always been able to sit in the hot tub whenever you want. You've always been able to take vacations wherever and whenever you want. You've never known what it's like to not have any of that, which means you can't experience all of the joy of having it. The only people who can truly enjoy not running a marathon are those who've run marathons. It only makes sense for someone who's run marathons to wake up in the morning and say, man, I'm glad I'm not running a marathon today. For all the rest of us, that's just that we've never experienced it before. So every day is not running a marathon. So we never really have that moment of, thank God I'm not running a marathon. This is the catch-22 of life. Only the people who've done something can enjoy not doing that same thing. So older people who've raised young children and have now moved past that phase of life certainly do feel relief that they no longer have to deal with some of the challenges that come with that phase. They also look back and miss a lot of that, okay? You talk to any 47-year-old who's had kids and they've moved past it, you're going to hear them say a lot about how I miss those days, man, I really miss those days. But there are also parts of those days that they don't miss. They don't miss having to wake up in the middle of the night or wake up early in the morning with a kid. They don't miss that. They're relieved to be past that. But you don't have that relief because you never were in that phase. You didn't earn the relief. They did. So they feel it in a way that you never will. Then again, I should also note that even parents of young children can still sit in hot tubs and go to the beach and enjoy and even climb mountains if they want. It may take more planning. It may involve complications that you don't have to deal with if you don't have kids. But despite popular misconceptions, you don't have to put your life on hold when you have kids. You don't have to give up really any of the things you like to do or any of your passions. I mean, provided that they're fruitful and good things. Instead, you learn to be intentional with your time. You learn to make good use of the time that you have. And that's a skill that you, Chelsea, would have done well to acquire, but you clearly never did. Second, and finally, having children, and this is maybe the most important point. Having children will not automatically make anyone happy. That's true, okay? Nobody is claiming that if you have a baby, you will immediately become unspeakably happy and you'll remain that happy forever, experiencing an unbroken chain of pure, uncomplicated joy until the day you die. That is not the case, and nobody has ever said that it's the case. In fact, if you're determined to be miserable as a parent, there will be many opportunities presented to you to be as miserable as you want to be. No, the point is that parenting opens up the possibility for joy, unique kinds of joy that are simply not available and are indeed in some ways inconceivable to non-parents. So the happiness that you're talking about, Chelsea, vacations and hot tubs and so on, these are self-centered things. You're happy because of the comfort and entertainment that's being provided to you. There's nothing wrong with that in moderation. Everyone is familiar with that kind of happiness. And it's available to everyone, parents and non-parents alike. But the joy of parenting and of family life is a joy found in caring for someone else. And that is a joy that you, Chelsea, have never in your life experienced, ever. You can't conceive of it. You don't know what it is. You have lived your whole life without it and will die without it and will be worse for it. This is the joy in giving, in loving. It's the joy found in the bond that holds families together. It's a simple joy, and it's free. And it's more pure and more beautiful than any joy that can be provided to you by a vacation resort. It's a joy that, if you open yourself to it, makes you a better person. It makes you less selfish, less superficial, less focused on your own needs and wants. In other words, a parent who opens themselves up to the joy of parenthood will become, well, a lot less like Chelsea Handler. And that is perhaps the best advertisement for parenting that I can offer. And that'll do it for this portion of the show. Let's move over to the members block. Hope to see you there. If not, talk to you tomorrow. Godspeed.